what's up YouTube? This is Edward, your favorite homeboy. Have you ever wanted to know how we set expectations with our tenants at the beginning of a lease to avoid all the problems at the end? Or have you ever wanted to know what a tenant has to agree to in the state of Virginia? Well, if you want to know the answers to those questions, stick around to the end of this video because today we're going to go through a Virginia lease with a tenant that we just approved just a few days ago. Now, we used to do these lease reviews face-to-face, and that's great. And we set expectations face-to-face, we get to meet them, and that's definitely the preferred way to do it. But due to time constraints and the volume of lease reviews that we've had to do, we really have been predominantly doing these over the phone. So by the time it takes to get to a coffee shop, now we've done the entire lease. It's a huge time savings, but we are compromising the whole face-to-face thing a little bit, but it still works. So without further ado, let's call a tenant.
Hello.
Hey Maxwell, it's Edward, Mars Hill Realty.
Hey Edward, how you doing, man?
Good, good. Hey, thanks for making the appointment to review the lease. And thanks again for also letting us film this on YouTube so we can kind of educate our audience on how to do a lease review.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome, awesome. So do you have the lease in front of you via DocuSign?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay, so this will only take about 10 minutes or so. I'm just going to go right through the lease. The purpose of this is just to kind of properly set expectations for all of our residents because every property manager does things different. Everyone has a different history of rental history, what they've done differently with their management company. So I just want to let you know how we do things. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. And that's what this call is for as well. So we'll just kind of jump right into it. I have my DocuSign open as well. So let's see. We have on the first page just the owner and you there on the first section, myself as a property manager. Paragraph 1 is the property information. Paragraph 2 is the term. You'll notice there's like March 15th, 2020 to the end of March 2021, right? And I believe we put the middle of March just to allow enough margin for your friend to move out at the end of April, and 2 weeks should be plenty of time. If you feel like, hey Edward, I want to move in sooner, can you get the place ready earlier? We can always cross that bridge and make an addendum when we get to it.
Perfect.
Paragraph 3, early termination. Basically, this lease is for the full term. There is no early termination unless it's approved by the owner, or later in the lease we'll go over a couple of scenarios where that could take place. But paragraph 4, you'll notice, it's the full amount. The full term is $22,587. I want to just take a minute to explain how all the money works because there's, our scenario is a little differently. But the first 6 months of the rent of the rental amount will be paid the first 6 months. And then you paid half of the holding fee. Typically, it's the full holding fee, so you'll eventually pay that second half yet. And then that holding fee will be applied towards that 6 month. And because we're moving in on a partial month of March, that's $987 for the month of March. That won't be due until April 1st.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
It does.
Awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and click away here, and that takes me to page 2. Okay, so paragraph 5 just talks about late payments. You'll notice in our handbook that rent is basically due on the 1st and late on the 3rd. And then in our handbook, there's a timeline of when communications go out and late rent fees accrue. But the bottom line here is if you set up your rent via auto payment, there won't be any trouble. Most of our clients, our tenants are doing that, and it's a no-brainer. Just you can set an auto start, auto end, and not even have to think about it.
Perfect.
All right. So let's just jump down to paragraph 7 where it talks about the management. Of course, that's us, and that's our contact information there. Paragraph 8. That's just our contact information there as well. Paragraph 9 just says that everything to the best of your knowledge is true on the rental application. And paragraph 10 is that you'll use this place as a single family residence.
Gotcha.
Pets, they're not allowed unless previous approval is granted. So if that is something in the future you want to look at, then just let us know. We can talk to the landlord about that.
Perfect.
No smoking on the premises, paragraph 12. Paragraph 13, this isn't a condo association. So, as you know, Maxwell, every condo, every HOA, they all have their own rules. The key to remember here, first of all, there's a phone number there in case you ever need to contact them. But the key to remember here is that if there's anytime there's a violation, normally they'll send a letter. And what we'll do is we'll contact you and say, hey, they contacted us and said no hanging your underwear out the window or something to dry. And
Gotcha.
as long as you fix it in time, send us a picture. No harm done, no fees are going to be charged or anything like that.
Okay.
And let me just check really quick our system to see if sometimes we're able to get a hold of those association documents and we just publish it to your portal. So I'm looking at it now. It looks like those are published to your portal. So if you ever feel like you're having trouble sleeping at night, just feel free to pull up those rules and regulations and the bylaws and you can read them.
Awesome.
Okay, any questions so far?
No, none so far.
All right, takes us to page 4. Vehicles. Just make sure here, everything is up to date, inspection-wise, registration-wise.
Gotcha.
No cars on blocks, that type of thing. Probably it's not allowed by the HOA anyways.
Yeah.
Utilities. So as soon as this lease is signed, what happens? It goes to our support team, and then they'll send you all the utilities to contact.
Perfect. Okay.
And so you can make all those arrangements at that time.
That was one of my questions. Okay, perfect.
Let's see here. And if I look at this, it does look like that I'm looking at my notes, utilities are covered by the HOA. So most likely, you're not going to have to set up much at all other than your,
Okay.
internet, TV or whatever. Because if it's covered by the HOA, the owner is going to cover that through the HOA fees.
Okay, perfect.
And there is a $25 repair deductible. So the way we explain that is, renting a home is a partnership between the owner and the resident. And so anytime there's a work order, you submit that through your portal, you just pay the first $25. The owner takes care of the rest.
Okay.
The only exceptions to that, Maxwell, are if, let's say you say, hey, Edward, my toilet's stuck. We send a plumber out there and the plumber says, hey, yeah, we pulled out, a toy. Well, then, it's kind of obvious, then you would be responsible for the whole thing. So unless it's totally obvious, you just pay the first $25.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. Okay, let's kind of skip on down paragraph 17. That just talks about the appliances that come with the property. You'll notice that ice maker is listed as is. That doesn't mean that there isn't one or it's not working. It just means that it's not considered an essential, like a refrigerator, microwave, oven, dishwasher. So if it does go out, it may or may not get replaced depending on the owner's discretion at the time.
Okay.
And that's just a standard thing we have in our contracts.
Okay.
Paragraph 18, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. So you'll have a chance to check to make sure they're all working. What we normally do is we have a maintenance technician, and they go through and they make sure all that's working before you move in anyways. But Murphy's Law, just in case if something's missed for some reason, you have your chance to check it, and you can mention it then, and we'll get it fixed for you.
Okay.
Okay, that takes us to paragraph 19, page 5, top of page 5, the security deposit. That's 1 month's rent. That's held in a non-operating trust account. So we don't use it, it just sits there. And then at the end of the lease, that's subject to be returned less any itemizations that we find. So the contract here says it has to be returned within 45 days. Our goal is 30 days.
Okay.
All right. And just make sure at the time, we'll send out a bunch of reminders. if you provide like your bank information, we can get it to you quicker instead of having a physical address.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, paragraph 20, move-in inspection. So I'm just going to kind of park here a little bit and talk about how the walkthroughs work, because that's something Mars Hill does something different. We do that a little differently. A lot of companies don't do a pre-move-in and a post-move-in walkthrough, and so I want to explain that for a little bit. The pre-move-in walkthrough it takes about 15, 30 minutes max, and our walkthrough technician will call you. The purpose of that walkthrough is really just to orient you to the place, show you where the filters are, making sure everything is great and ready for move-in, so there's no stress on the day of move-in. That's not a very detailed walkthrough. It's just, okay, here's how you'll get access, here's a quick orientation, make sure all your fees are paid and everything is in order. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then at that inspection, our walkthrough technician, her name is Susie, she's going to schedule a post-move-in walkthrough. So the post-move-in walkthrough, that's going to happen about 5 to 7 days after you move in. And the congratulations email that I sent had an attachment called a property inspection report. Do you remember seeing that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, I think 3, 4, 5 pages. So what you'll do in the first 5 days that you're living in the home is just mark it up. Be as detailed as possible and list everything that's pre-existing. It doesn't matter if it's a small scratch or anything. You can't be too detailed, because that's to protect you so that you won't be charged for anything that's pre-existing at the move out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so at that post-move-in inspection, Susie's going to take that report, you're going to walk through that with her, and she's going to take a photo of everything you listed, and she's going to get photo documentation and post it on your portal so you have that for your records.
Perfect.
And that's just to help our tenants know that we're not here to like, hey, it's a gotcha, and you're gonna spend all your money to fix up the landlord's problems. No, we don't want you to be charged for things that are pre-existing.
Perfect.
All right, cool. Any questions on the walkthroughs?
No.
All right. And so the final walkthrough when you move out is called a move out walkthrough. And we do the same thing. Susie goes through there, takes photos, and just compare it with the post move-in. And anything that's different is subject to be deducted from the deposit. So that's we just do the same process, repeat that at the move out. Okay, so we'll move on to paragraph 21, which talks about tenant obligations. And you could just kind of read through that, but again, it kind of plays back to that partnership mentality. There are some things that the tenant has to do. It's not like you're in a hotel. There's things that you have to maintain. It talks about maintaining it in a clean condition, replacing the filters and the light bulbs, and just little stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
The big things that we normally get called for, just to kind of let you know that that sometimes the tenant gets charged for because they call us and it ends up being their responsibility. The two big things, one would be plumbing issues where they're like stuffing stuff down the sink, the kitchen sink, and clogging up the, what do you call that? That is disposal. If you just kind of use that not as a trash can, and just put like a strainer there, that would help a lot. Same thing with the bathtubs. I mean, usually if there's long hair in the family, then all that long hair gets caught in there. But I don't know if you have long hair or not, but that won't be an issue if you don't.
I do not.
So that's a common one, is the plumbing. And another common question we get is pest control. So that is something that the tenant maintains, is pest control. Of course, if you get there, Maxwell, and you find out that there's like an infestation or something, then obviously let us know. We'll take care of it for you, and then you could just maintain it at that point.
Of course. Okay.
Cool. Any questions on this section?
No.
All right. Paragraph 22, holdover. That just means, at the end of the lease, if you're still there when you're not supposed to, it will cost you more. That's never happened to us before because we have good communication. 90 days out before the lease ends, we're going to be communicating with you on as far as what you want to do next.
Okay.
Paragraph 23, landlord consent required. Bottom line here is, when in doubt, just get it in writing, so that, if you're going to make any changes to the property, you're covering yourself. 24, insurance requirements. On the congrats email, talks about getting renter's insurance, and there's some recommendations there if you need any.
Yeah, I actually do have a quick question about that. So I have renter's insurance and everything, and I'll switch over the address once I move in. For the property owner, what address should I use? Should I just use the one that you gave me just for like your guys' office? Because I know I can put like I have to put you guys as one, Mars Hill.
Right. And do you have our address?
Yes. So I have your address. Let me see. Just to 15409.
You got it. You can just duplicate our address on that.
Okay.
It's fine.
So and then put the property owner. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll do that then. Okay.
Cool. Good question. Okay, so that brings us to paragraph 25, costs of enforcement. Basically, the bottom line here is if something has to be enforced, like using that example of the underwear in the window, and you don't do it, we can do it and then just charge you for it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Most commonly, this is when like a tenant's on vacation and the grass needs to be cut, and we just have to cut it and bill them for it. In this case, being a condo, it's very unlikely.
Okay.
Access to premises. Okay, we'll talk about this for a little bit. So our philosophy on access to premises is, we're going to always give you notice whenever possible. We're not just going to barge in on you. And anytime there is an access that we need to have access, then we'll give you notice. Anytime a vendor needs to have access, we'll give them your contact information and vice versa, so that you guys can contact each other and have an appointment to get whatever fixed.
Okay.
Now, the only exception to that is our in-house maintenance technician. Just because they're in-house, we have a relationship. It's fully trustworthy and all that. When you call in something that can be handled by a maintenance technician that's in-house, then what will happen then is they'll say, "Hey Maxwell, this is Rodney. I just got the work order to fix your faucet. I'm going to be there tomorrow at 4." And you don't have to be there.
Cool.
He'll just go in, knock it out, you come back from work and it's done.
Okay.
So that's going to be, hopefully, 90% of the work orders can be handled by a maintenance technician, and if you just knock it out, it's easy for everybody. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Cool. But if it's like a plumber, HVAC guy that doesn't work for Mars Hill, then of course they'll call you directly.
Okay, that works.
All right. And of course, when at the end of the lease, 90 days out, we contact you and say, "Yeah, Edward, I want to leave and do something different." Then at the 60-day mark, we put a lockbox on the property, and agents will be contacting you and giving you at least 12 hours notice at that point as well.
Okay.
Okay. Paragraph 27, 28, those aren't checked, so none of that applies. The landlord, neither the landlord or the tenant can cut the lease short. None of those boxes are checked. The only reasons why you could cut the lease short, hopefully this doesn't happen here, is paragraph 30 through 33, talks about bankruptcy, condemnation, death, or fire. And then paragraph 35 talks about the move-out inspection, which we went over. What happens there, we do that move-out walkthrough and for the itemization and just some of the obligations you have to get the place ready.
Gotcha.
Paragraph 36, there's no subordination of the lease, so you can't sublease it or anything like that without prior approval. All notices are by electronic delivery. Paragraph 37, so just make sure your email is up to date. Paragraph 38, there's no lead. It says it was built before 1978, so there should be a lead-based paint disclosure in the lease here.
Okay.
Just don't eat the walls, you'll be fine.
Perfect.
Let's see. Paragraph 41, all the other addendums here. You see the EPA booklet, protect your family from lead in your home. You can, again, if you're having trouble falling asleep, just read through that. Lead-based paint disclosure and addendum A. Addendum A is that resident handbook that you signed when you first applied.
Yes, gotcha.
Paragraph 42, no diplomats, right? You're not a diplomat, is that right?
I'm not.
Okay, I checked that. Just want to make sure. Every now and then we get one, and so
Really?
let's see. We don't discriminate, paragraph 44. And then paragraph 47, these are the additional terms where you're paying the 6 months in advance. Starting May 1st, you'll resume the normal 1,800. Tenant to use, property management approved cleaner and carpet cleaner. Some of this is kind of repetitive, but that's the additional terms there. Any questions so far, Maxwell?
Let me see. I don't think so. I know we did talk about, because I eventually will want to get a roommate.
Yes.
So is that still all covered and good to go and everything?
That's still good as far as I'm concerned. Whenever that happens, then just let us know, and then what we'll do is, we'll direct them to the website where they can apply, and then we'll go take them through the qualification process, and
Go from there. Okay.
yeah, it should be pretty painless.
Perfect.
If we look at the next couple pages, let's see, it's 7 pages. It talks about useful information and understanding your rights and responsibilities. Those are just standard disclosures here in Virginia.
Okay.
So you'll notice you'll sign the last page of those. And then it goes into the lead-based paint, which I'm going to initial here. And then you'll be signing there, but you'll notice that the owner says they have no knowledge of any lead-based paint or anything like that. And then there's that big old booklet. We'll kind of scroll through that. And then once you scroll through the booklet, there's our handbook. This handbook, let's see here. Any questions on the handbook?
No, honestly, it's pretty straightforward. So.
Yeah, it's it's just a reference doc, but you'll notice it's divided into 3 sections: prior to moving in, which is kind of what's happening now; during your occupancy, which talks about work orders, which I do want to talk about briefly here. So paragraph 4C, or chapter 4C, under maintenance procedures, just remember that you're always having to submit a work order through your portal, and making sure that we service our residents quickly is very important to me. It's for good quality, good customer service. So what you can expect from us is that we'll respond by noon the next business day. So we'll respond to all maintenance requests by noon the next business day. When you submit it through the portal, what it actually does, it also notifies the owner, which is great because it kind of keeps us, holds our feet to the fire and keeps us accountable. So the owner knows about it. When you submit it through the portal, it never falls through the cracks because it's in our system. We'll respond by noon the next business day. If you don't hear from us, then just contact us, because then we're not doing something right.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Let's see here, kind of scrolling through here. And then over there in also chapter 4E talks about late rent procedures. So it talks about how we escalate if someone's late with notifications before we forward it to an eviction attorney. Again, we're not gonna have any issues with you. You're paid ahead, and you're gonna be way ahead of most tenants that we have, so that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then tenant move-out procedures, that's gonna be a section that you'll wanna review when you move out, and that's just divided into pre-move-in, during your occupancy, and move-out. And then the last chapter is summary of fees. So you'll notice, there are some administrative fees that occur during, if a payment gets returned, or a tenant gets locked out or something like that. The one I want to bring your attention to is a change of household fee. So anytime we make modifications to the lease, like we will in the future, there's a change of household fee. And then there's an application fee that has to be paid for any applicant. So those are just something you want to keep in mind.
Okay.
And that's it, really. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Well, I think we covered it all. Has our walkthrough tech been in contact with you yet?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we are kind of far out, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally fine. Do the renter's insurance. I know I got to send that and stuff. So yeah.
Okay.
Totally fine.
Great. Hey, Maxwell. Again, thanks for taking time out of your lunch to be on the call. And any questions that come up in the meanwhile, don't hesitate to reach out.
Perfect. Will do.
All right. Have a great day. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Under 25 minutes. So, I mean, you just driving down to like Fairfax or, close to DC is going to be 25 minutes. So super time saver. I love it. Yeah, I won't meet them face to face, but these days, gosh, people are buying thousands of dollars of stuff over online. So it's not as ideal, but it gets the job done. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video on reviewing a lease with a tenant. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to write it down there in the comments below. Hit the like button, share it with your friends, and this is your favorite homeboy signing out.